went to school in 1940, and there was a huge fear from everybody that, we were going to be taken over by the Germans. And the first thing I learnt to do was to read. So I used to read everything, including newspapers. And it really did frighten me what I read. And of course, at school, we had these ghastly trenches dug. Well, as a little girl, we used to have to practice coming out of the school and going in these trenches along the playing field. Well, to me, they towered above me. So I thought, I went home and I said to Mother, I'm not going to be buried alive, so they'll have to shoot me when they come. She thought that was funny.
Essentially, it was a wartime school.
Yes.
With tape over the windows, a trench around the playing field, drill every Monday morning when we had to put on our gas masks and march out and jump into this trench, in this muddy trench around the field.
And most of the years, you see, were the war years. We didn't seem to do too much, and we spent a lot of time of rehearsing and practicing in case we heard the Germans, and we had to keep getting under the desks. We spent a lot of time getting under the desks. We did.
In the beginning of the war, the evacuees all came to Martham. When I got home from school, there were 3 mothers and 2 babies and a toddler all sitting crying in the So much to my, horror, really. And Martham was just inundated. They all came from Bethnal Green in London, and every night they all congregated at the pubs. There was 3 public houses in Martham then, and then they would all sit on the greens, and all the greens would be covered with, mothers and babies and toddlers, literally. And how I just can't think how we managed for food, and because all the rationing and what have you. And I was trying to remember how we slept them all, and I don't know where we put them. I know I had to have a little bed in my mother's and father's room, and I had to give up my bedroom.
The Germans tried to get the church, and they used to set incendiary bombs, not the big ones, and they used to go drop the bombs down Sandy Lane to get rid of them so they could go back. But we did have a big bomb direct on one house, and that is when I lost my little school pal, and she's on the War Memorial, Beryl Applegate, and she died. Yes.
My aunt and uncle and my cousin had come out from Galston because of the bombs.
Yes.
And they thought it was safer in the country, and they lived in a little thatched cottage behind Yew Tree Cottage.
Oh, right.
A German gunner in the rear of a plane probably saw a chink of light and just aimed at it. And my uncle got shot in the back, and my aunt in her shoulder and wrist. And all I remember that night is being woken up because my young cousin, who was about 2, got plonked into my bed. And then I think it was a day or 2 later, my mother noticed that there was a hole in the bedroom wall from the outside into my bedroom. I slept at the back of Yew Tree Cottage. And the hole went right through. And so she looked in the other wall above the bed head, and there was the bullet embedded in the wall.
Good gracious.
And if I'd been sitting up in bed, then it probably would have killed me.
We were out getting cowweed for the rabbits, because my dad kept lots of rabbits in the wall. That was our main diet, rabbit. And there was a single plane came over, so low, I waved to the pilot. To my horror, there were swastikas on the wings. And my mother said, "In the ditch!" And we both leapt into this ditch, full of water and nettles and awful. And he shot at us, he machine gunned us. But fortunately, we got right down in this water, and he went off, and I think he came and did some machine gunning in Martham.
One day it was a glorious summer morning, and we got to school and we weren't allowed to go in because a stray German aeroplane had thought probably we might still be there, but actually it was about 8 o'clock when he shot the school up. And we were kept out of the school until it had been thoroughly inspected. But I remember going in, and the floors were solid wood, and where the bullets had hit this floor, there was big chips taken out of it. But 6 weeks later, we had a bar of chocolate each from the Canadians, so we thought that was wonderful.
And then one night they made a mistake and had all these incendiary bombs designated, we presume, for Yarmouth. And they all dropped on Martham. And my dad was busy putting out we had no end in our garden, and then he suddenly got the call. He had to go to the station yard. That was the prime importance because of all the ammunition. There was all these trucks with ammunition in. And my Uncle Jack, my dad's brother, he was in the Home Guard, and they were there as well. And they were putting out all these fires, and then suddenly they heard a whistling noise, which was, you knew then that was a big bomb coming down. And they just, with one accord, leapt under the trucks, which were all full of ammunition, remember? And they laid under the trucks, and this high explosive landed in a field next to the station. And the blast from the explosion, as they laid there, lifted the trucks up off the rails in the air, and then they came down and landed on the rails again neatly. And they didn't realise, sort of what had happened until they were thinking about it the next day, and what could have happened. If that high explosive had landed in the yard, I think half Martham would have gone, well, all Martham would have probably gone.
Things were getting really, really short, and the bread and the flour began to get very dark, not black, but getting dark. And once a week we had a pie come round, a meat and potato pie. And it was called, did you hear of the Woollerton pie? But we thought this little pie was lovely. That was a little extra during the war, you see, little special thing.
And I went to Cambridge, and I was one of the first people to learn how to use a comptometer. And the Ministry of Food sent me to Cambridge with another girl, and we came back after about 2 months or 3 months training, and we had a computer each and did a comptometer, and did all the maths on the comptometer.
What's a comptometer?
Well, it was an adding up machine.
What did you do when you left school?
I had to work on the land at Bailey's. I left at 14, and it was jolly hard work because I was working alongside the Land Army girls. And we all had to do the same thing. But the weather was terrible in the winter, and those girls, they had all the right gear for the job, you see. They had big coats, jerseys, shirts, trousers, boots, big thick socks, hats and everything. And I had to buy mine. My little dungarees, that's all I could have, little dungarees, and they were not very thick. And but we got the same. We had the same money, and we had to do the same job. And I always think when they're trying to boost the Land Army girl, it was not nice. It was not a nice job. I don't think so. It was jolly hard. I was pulling sugar beet in the snow. Yes, I was, a 16-year-old. It was hard, very hard.